Hey there friends, what's up? Kevin here from the MSOTD Rocks YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 5th studio album from this highly anticipated band that will wake you up inside. God, I'm cheesy. This is our review of The Bitter Truth by Evanescence. Before we get started, please follow MSOTD Rocks on places like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You'll get the 30-second song of the day feature on all of those platforms to expand your musical knowledge of the stuff that's big in the scene today and the stuff that is upcoming from all the emerging artists. You also get to contact us on all those platforms. We post many different questions and let you know anytime anything gets released, podcast-wise, YouTube-wise, any announcements on all those platforms. It's a great way to connect with us. Plus on Instagram, every single Tuesday night, we release an IGTV video. It's like a behind the scenes look at what's happened here. Sometimes it's like good rants and stuff. Sometimes just cool stuff that's happening here. Sometimes we just go on whatever the heck we feel like. And every single Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central, we go live on Instagram. And because now with Instagram doing those 4-panel things where I can bring on 3 people instead of 1, it is getting nuts. So you're definitely going to want to join because anything can happen. Please also subscribe to this YouTube channel because not only are you getting these album reviews, you also get other videos as well, such as different top 10 lists that we make. Our year-end awards at the end of every single year. You go back and look at our 2020, 2019, and 2018 awards. And of course, the Kevin Figures Out series where I try and figure out if I like certain bands or not that I'm not that well versed with in the scene today. And on this YouTube channel, this is also where the Chord Progression podcast lives. Yes, it is our very own podcast. We're interviewing all the emerging and upcoming bands in the scene today, from rock, metal, and all their different subgenres, even some heavy hitters as well. And we have some even bigger ones coming down the line. Heck, we have JD, aka Justin DeBleek, formerly of Ice Nine Kills, producing now with Joey Arena of Outlier and Arena coming up soon. We have had episodes with From Ash to New, Modern Day Escape, Rosie, Avoid. So there are a lot there. Just check us out. We have all the podcast video on YouTube, or you can listen to the audio streams on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and iHeart. Links to below for everything. So like, share, subscribe, comment on this video, tell your neighbor about this stuff. Now let's roll. A little bit of a background on Evanescence. Their previous album Synthesis came out in 2017, and it included a lot of different reworkings and reimaginings of classic Evanescence tracks with 2 brand new tracks on it as well. Looking at the reviews for it, most people gave it like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. There were some reviews that gave it only a 2 out of 10, and the biggest reason behind that was because they were looking at the reworked versions and thinking they were going to get a whole album, but really didn't care to only get 2 new songs. It was like 20 by Taking Back Sunday back in 2019, very similar to that. My take on Synthesis though, I really didn't listen to it, so I'm not going to give you a take on it because that's just unfair in all honesty. In 2019 though, I did get a chance to see Evanescence live in concert here in Milwaukee at the Rave. I was going because Of Mice and Men was open. I really wanted to see them perform, but I believe Aaron Pauley ended up getting sick that day, so they had to drop out. I didn't find out until the day of the show when I was there, so I'm like, oh man. Seeing Evanescence though, in the middle of July in a concert hall ballroom with no AC, humid as all hell outside, I have to give a lot of credit to Amy Lee. Her performance was fantastic. She gave it her all in that heat and humidity, so I actually really enjoyed it. Now to even take a look at The Bitter Truth. When work began on the album in 2018, it was really working in 2019 and 2020. Nick Raskulowicz was the only producer on this album because while they were working and planning on working with many different producers, of course COVID hit and they only had to go with Nick. So it's kind of cool that you went with one person. We'll see how this all turns out though. Early reviews of the album kind of were looking about the same as Synthesis with 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. So time for me to jump into it and we'll see what we think. Now time for the composition, construction, and instrumentation on The Bitter Truth by Evanescence. When it comes to Evanescence, I pretty much know exactly what I'm going to get in terms of style, where they're going to mix in with a lot of electronic influences with this more hard rock, metal, new metal approach at the same time as well. Also very symphonic metal at the same time. So you guys know me. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of electronic inclusion because at times I think it really takes away from the raw, visceral energy of the song and it doesn't let us connect with the artist fully. That is my personal take though. However, what we got from Evanescence on this album was pretty much what I expected in terms of that mixture. But the question is, how did it work? Because I'm not going to make a call just on, oh, we got what we expected. What do these songs sound like? Did it work? And for the most part, I actually really liked what I heard on this album. There are 3 songs in particular that I really did like to show off this. Wasted on You is probably the first one that I really liked in terms of this, and here's the reason why. With the intro, we kind of start with this solo piano, and I love how this takes us in this emotionally impactful style of the song overall. Watch the video, it was made during quarantine, so it makes a lot of sense. But then as we get into the verses, we see a change in the electronic backing with this higher pitched synth really overlayering everything else in there. And because of how the piano sound in the intro, I initially didn't like this because it kind of overshadows what that intro was really going for in the mood. But then when we get more into the chorus, this is where everything changes up for the better in my opinion. In the chorus of Wasted on You, we get this more full feel from the instrumentals, a more raw visceral feel, but the pacing overall really keeps up with the rest of the song, and I like how this works. This is really because the drums focus on this more heavier build with the more melodic style that the song is going for, heavy snare fills, and the guitars work again with that constant, consistent melodic sound, and this really gives us the heavier feel of the song. It is more raw and it has this more visceral tone to it, like we're really feeling everything that Amy Lee really wants to show us here. And this stands out as a high point on the album for me. Far From Heaven is another great example of this. They start out with that intro piano, which really gives us more of the ballady feel, but then as they build up with the electronic instrumentation really influence this, what ends up happening is in the verses, that electronic instrumentation gives us more orchestral feel, almost said orchestral feel, and then all of a sudden, the strings come with these violins, and we get this full-on orchestral feel. Given the theme of the song of Amy Lee questioning her faith, this really brings out this more powerful stance on it, and I love the build-up on this song. In the chorus, the piano actually ends up dropping back, and that orchestral sound becomes much more prominent, and there's a little bit more electronic bass of wonderment that kind of really comes forward. But then when the orchestral and the piano really come back in the second half, so it's kind of like we're getting the electronic part of it first, but then the piano and orchestral part comes in second. I absolutely love how this works, and this is because when Amy is talking about questioning her faith, the electronic piece works as she's calling out to the heavens, but then again, now I prefer normally, but for some reason this just works. In the bridge though, this is where this song really takes off because the pianos play a little bit more of those higher notes, but it's really where the orchestral part comes in. On this, the orchestral part, it's just the strings, the violin, they become more prominent, more powerful, and we feel like this could be more of that religious revival that Amy Lee is talking about, just kind of like the heavens opening up and really just having that epiphany moment right in this moment. It was a great move on this one. Blind Belief is probably my favorite track on this album at the end of this album, just to really show how the instrumentals stand out. I'm going through the whole thing with you guys. With the intro of the song, it starts out with this like deep burning feel with the electronic piece in there, and this heavy piano riff comes in, and I love the piano riff, how it sets us up. However, we get this more melodic hard rock, very 3 Days Grace, Adam Gontier style inspired intro, and I'm a huge fan of this because it has an absolutely great sound to it. Then when we jump into the verses on Blind Belief, we get more of this electronic feel here with them really taking the place of the drums. I'm curious kind of see how this plays out going back into like the heavier stuff, hard rock stuff that I hope the chorus ends up having. So again, it's kind of an interesting build. We're going back to that more electronic Evanescence piece of this, but I love how the hard rock stuff was in this, so I'm hoping they go back to this. Then when it comes to the pre-chorus, that heavier hard rock style ends up coming back in here, and I really do like this. This is because the guitars are heavier, the drums playing with more of that melodic style. Again, a huge thing for me on this one. It takes us right back in the song after the verses, and it contrasts against them very well. It's a great move going into the chorus, and in the chorus, that hard rock style again continues. The drums playing this heavier style with more melodic pacing, but the guitar riff in this chorus is probably the best guitar riff in this whole entire album. Again, it's heavy. It just drives so well against that melodic vocals and the more melodic drums at the same time as well. It's the perfect contrasting element. And then the bridge, the guitars really take it full force as the vocals and drums really work consistently together to build up to this heavier break kind of instrumental thing. And it's just a fantastic thing. It just ends the song very powerfully. So overall, when it comes to composition, construction, and instrumentation on The Bitter Truth by Evanescence, again, we're going to get a lot of the stuff that we can expect from Evanescence. A good amount of pianos, good amount of electronic styles in there, some symphonic metal, and a lot of hard rock. But for the most part, how they mix this in and really made these songs sound a little bit more dynamic in overall sound, whether it's a little bit slower, a little bit faster, a little bit more hard rock, a little bit more ballad style, they did a fantastic job. Now take a look at the vocals of Amy Lee on The Bitter Truth. When it comes to Evanescence, we all know that Amy Lee is the driving force behind this and really what makes the band special with how her vocals, the way she can melodicize them, the way she can draw them out, the angelic style, the different tones she can do, and just the power that they have behind them can really just drive these songs into a whole nother way, and it's been very prevalent since their debut. What I was hoping we didn't see though was what I saw with In This Moment on Mother, where the vocals and Maria Brings Out were such a focal point on that album that the instrumentals really didn't play out. Luckily, you heard me talk about the instrumentals in the previous section, so we know that that isn't the case here. But when it really came down to listening to Amy Lee's vocals on this, there was something that I really liked, but there was something that just kept bothering me throughout the whole entire thing. So let's take a look at both pieces. The first thing that really worked out well here was the vocal tone and control and range that Amy Lee really went with. Again, every single step of the way on this album, I thought that the tone that Amy Lee used, the style, the pacing, just a lot of the stuff that was here was very controlled, and it made a lot of sense that Amy Lee really took full force of this, and a couple of songs really show this. Take a look at Far From Heaven, where in the verse, Amy goes with this more melodic, angelic, yet also melancholic feel to her vocals, and we really get that from the theme, you know, questioning your faith. It makes a lot of sense. Do not get me wrong, it does work. Then in the pre-chorus, we see that melancholic sound really begin to build with energy and the same time with that melodic tone. And again, it's connecting both what the chorus is going to have and what the verse, we're really getting that build up here. Then in the chorus, Amy Lee is all over the place in the chorus. But there are times, of course, her vocals go back down to get into that melodic, melancholic tone. But there are times where we just amp up with the energy. So they're all kind of over the place. But there's so much control here, it just works out incredibly well to really show that passion, that power, that energy that she's trying to show in this song. So this works out well. Wasted on You is another one, especially the chorus. When I take a look at the chorus of the song, it has this more angelic and melodic tone, but because it is over a little bit more of this hard rock melodic bass, I really like what it does here because the rawness of that sound really brings out more of this angelic tone, more of this believability in Amy Lee's vocals right here to really show us the power of what she's trying to express in this song. I'm a real big fan of how this works. Then of course I gotta talk about Blind Belief. You know I gotta talk about this one. In the verses of this song, Amy really keeps the vocal style in this more softer tone overall with this more angelic, breathy kind of quality to it. But with the heavier electronic bass behind it, the mix just works more to give this more ominous feel that the electronic pieces of this really give off. Then we go to the pre-chorus, Amy Lee amps up the vocals and takes it with that breathy style, but again, ups the overall sound overall. And when the instrumentals really get partnered, this is perfect to really lead us into that chorus. It's one of the best things overall on this album. So what didn't work on this one, and it is the mix that was on Amy Lee's vocals. The reason why this mix didn't work was because for the majority of it, again, tone, range, just the quality and just the different styles of vocals really worked out well. But the overall mix really dropped the volume of her stuff down a little bit, so the instrumentals kind of overlayered it and kind of constricted it so that the vocals didn't take the full power. Amy Lee's vocals are the most prominent part of Evanescence. Yes, they did work incredibly well with the instrumentation, but I thought them being a little bit louder would have been a lot better. First, take a look at Blind Belief, specifically the chorus on this one. The tone of her vocals, again, perfect on this one with the higher pitch style. It contrasts well against the lower instrumentation, but the vocal mix, I wish it was louder because it would have complemented that heavier sound so well in the contrast, but her vocals, it seemed to get a little bit lost in that as well. Even Use My Voice has this because as we get into the chorus, it starts out more of this like chanting, driving style behind her vocals, but then we get this more like high-pitched style that has the chant, and I really don't care for that chant because again, it seems like we're getting this less believable sound from her by the end, but they really end this part strong, do not get me wrong. It really is kind of a mixed bag here, but in the bridge, we get this softer build overall on Amy Lee's vocals once again, and they do build to have much more of an audible, powerful sound. I like the build on it, but it's just, if you're gonna build on that, let's keep that beginning part clear enough so we can really build fully into it. I feel like it's just, the build was there, but the full power of that build just was lost. Even look at Yeah Right. In the chorus, Amy's gonna go more melodic, but also be on par with the overall pacing of the instrumentals here. But I'm not the biggest fan of the chorus because I get the melodic vocal set here to really drive the point home the best way with Amy Lee's impeccable voice, but it seems to get loose in that energy because the vocal mix is just drawn back so much that you just don't really fully feel the power behind Amy Lee's vocals here. In the bridge, she keeps it more melodic and more with full control of her vocal range, and it's good control, but again, the chimes that are in here just kind of overpower the vocal set and just bring it back. So overall, when it comes to Amy Lee's vocals on The Bitter Truth, I'm a little concerned about this because the styles, the tones, the range, the different quality, the melodicizing of it, it's all done really well. But the mix on the final product just takes that energy that is possible from her vocals and kind of draws it back to the point where we don't get the full feel of it. However, seeing some of these songs live, hopefully in 2021 or 2022, they could easily be insane powerhouses. When it comes to the overall themes of this album and the styles of the songs to really work with it, let's take a look at the themes first. And the overall theme for Bitter Truth is really taking a look inside the mind of Amy Lee and really seeing different things that she was going through, different realizations she was having. A couple of songs show examples. Let's take a look at Yeah Right at first. The meaning of this one, it reflects on Amy's experience being in a band and how life is rarely what it looks like on the outside, where what we see isn't necessarily what we always get. Take a look at Wasted on You as well, where it's kind of about going through a tough circumstance and feeling lost in it. Could be about a person, but they kind of did the 180 thing and really focus in on this one being the first single by relating it to the pandemic. Very similar to what From Ashes to New did with Panic, so I totally applaud them for that. Take Cover, it looks at elements of Amy's life and how she moved on from them, but at times they still kind of come back. And it's need to be said because they kind of need to come back at some point. And then, of course, Far From Heaven, where Amy is kind of talking about questioning what you believe in, as she describes it as a time when she started questioning her faith. So we're really getting more in the mind of Amy Lee here, but how did these styles really affect these themes? And overall, I'm gonna have to say both yes and no. When it comes to the instrumental parts of this, I really did like how they really expressed those themes because we're getting more of that classic Evanescence sound here with the electronic instrumentals and really influences on more of these hard rock, sometimes symphonic metal tracks. But what we also get too is just these different sounds, especially when the piano comes in. Far From Heaven is the perfect example, is because that orchestral sound really brings more of this church faith-based kind of feel to it. So when you're talking about questioning your faith, it has this more grandiose approach, and I really did like how that works. Where I'm going to say no on this as well is just because, again, I got to go to the overall vocal mix on this. It really did not stand out to me that well in the slightest because, again, we're losing a lot of the power in Amy Lee's vocals to describe this stuff and really show the emotion on this when the mix is overall dropped back so the instrumentals kind of overlayer it a little bit. It's kind of like, I can totally believe this, but I'm not feeling it fully. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So now overall, The Bitter Truth by Evanescence. What's my rating? It is... I'm gonna give The Bitter Truth a 6.5 out of 10. So 6.5 out of 10, there's got to be some piece I liked about this album. And of course, the big thing I think that stands out here is Amy Lee's overall range, style, and the more construction of her vocals, because on a lot of these songs, just the way that she worked with those overall styles and overall tones, she really brought out a lot of the greatness that is Evanescence, but also really showed that with some of these themes and meanings, was really able to guide us through a certain amount of these things due to the fact that, again, she's talking about it herself. She's really putting out full force. Songs like Blind Belief, Far From Heaven, and Waste on You really do show this. One thing I like about this album is the fact that they actually kind of include a couple of those electronic mixes on some of these heavier songs, but in my opinion, they really did work out well. Like on Blind Belief, it just added so much more in the verses to really lead us into those more hard rock choruses that really just brought out the full force of this. Broken Pieces Shine and Take Cover also do something similar to this to just amplify overall with the heaviness of the track. So I really did like how this works because, again, the electronic pieces is classic Evanescence, but now they're blending them in really well to really just kind of add more to the overall style, just not to just, drown them out and just kind of make these songs feel less raw. I really did like this move. And then, of course, I said it right at the end of themes and or vocals, I should say. The potential for these songs live are just the powerhouses because they have so much power behind them. The melodic parts of them just can really create this overall insane emotional connection with the fans here. And of course, if the vocal styles and overall vocal volume on Amy Lee's part is a little bit more amped up than what we saw on the recording, my God, can these songs just absolutely hit you right in the heartstrings. Songs like Blind Belief, Feeding the Dark, and Waste on You can really do well here. But what did I dislike about this album? And again, it's going to be the overall mix that was on Amy Lee's vocals, because the vocals, overall, again, construction, the different parts, different pacings, fantastic. But it was the mix, the volume was not prominent enough to really just show you this. The volume ended up being pulled back because the instrumentals kind of overlapped it. So when you have these harder instrumentals, again, the contrast could have been perfect on these to really bring out the power of these songs and power of the message. Again, I think I talked with JD, Justin really got in the podcast about this. Again, it's like the believability of the vocals. The believability would have been even higher for me had that just volume mix been a little bit more prevalent on Amy Lee to show that contrast, to show that more raw, visceral style. it was something that just really stood out to me. Blind Belief is the perfect example of this because the more hard rock style of the chorus would have fit in perfectly with a more vocal Amy Lee, again, on the volume side. Her vocals are good on there, but the volume just wasn't necessarily fully there to wrap around. A lot of other songs show this, like Part of Me, Take Cover, and Use My Voice. There's more on there, but I think I said it beforehand where if you saw these songs live and they kind of just had the volume on Amy Lee's mic a little bit higher, these songs could hit in so much more of a powerful way. So that's like my final thought. When I first listened to Bitter Truth, I thought, nah, this album really isn't that good. It's kind of middle of the road. But that's why I go song by song, super duper deep to really try and figure this out. And then I'm like, I really kind of can enjoy this album, but there's just something off about it. Again, the electronic inclusion on here with the more hard rock symphonic metal style as well, and even with that orchestral style, the more ballad style with the piano, they really work well to really bring that in and really give it more of this natural feel to really let each part shine and really connect each piece from the electronic parts to the more, standard guitar, bass, drums, even some of those orchestral violin parts as well. They do a great connection here. Amy Lee's vocals, again, the way they're constructed, the style, the different tones, the different pace on them, I thought were really well done to really maximize what the instrumentals were going for. But the biggest reason that took this album from being potentially great to just, it's actually good is just, again, it's the vocal mix on Amy Lee, because if the vocal mix would have had her volume more louder and more prevalent in these songs, this would have been so much more impactful. It would have been powerful. This could have been one of their best albums had that not happened. However, the one caveat I will say about this is this album shows a lot of promise for them to play it live, because you amp the volume on Amy Lee's vocals here, people are just going to just be blown away by these tracks and instantly connect with them. So I can't knock the album too much for that, but it's not going to be somewhere I'm going to be praising it too much because it is a very prevalent thing from track to track. So that's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of our album reviews. This is Kevin from the MCD Rocks YouTube channel. We're going with the head flip right in the head. See ya!